Hello and welcome to part 4 of our OpenTTD series. In this episode I'm going to finish off the railways that we did last episode, and we're going to see what else we can do. So, as I remember, we'd sent all of the trains to the depot, which we have done because everything is here. So let's redo these, and the plan was that we were going to have two lines running along here. One was a local line, one was an express line. So let us start with the local line. So let's click on our depot and choose what we're going to use, which will be this. So let's add an extra carriage to it. Let's plan its route. So stop here, and then at every station along the route. So our local trains, we said, were going to veer off and terminate at Meeborn. Or was that the case? Let's have a look. In fact, no. I'm going to say the local trains carry on down here. For two reasons. One is obviously we have this station here, which would be pointless getting the express trains to service, and as this only has a population of 475, but also this city here is a lot smaller than this city, so we're better off having that as the terminus for the express trains. So that'll be one route, so I'll have it autofill and start on there, and then we shall create the express route. So we'll use an express sprinter with two high-speed carriages, and we will make sure that these commands are non-stop. As there are now stations in between the stops, we don't want the train to service. So boot down twice, and then Meeborn in the middle. And then we will autofill that route. So, while these routes are filling themselves for their timetables, what we will do is create a station for the coal train here. Now, what's going to be best? Straight away I can see that what's probably going to be easiest is to create a platform here. Just have it join onto the main line opposed to making the station in this direction, because we're going to cut out the station, which is going to be quite beneficial. So let's create the station. Let's find something that's fitting for it. So, where is it again? Fixtures, raw materials. We have a mineral platform for coal, but I'm sure, yes, here there is a mineral station. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we will add a buffer onto the end. If I can find where it is, that one will do. And then we will extend this down and have it adjoin onto the main line. We are going to have to move the signals around in this area, so first of all we're going to need a block signal there and there, because we're going to create a junction onto the main line, and we'll also need a junction for the coal train to wait to service the main line. So that is our very small coal platform, which we can use. Now the one thing I'm also thinking is we're going to need a depot for this train. Now it might be worth creating a depot that we can use long term and a set of sidings, as was mentioned in the previous video by someone in the comments. So let's think where we can do that. This space here does look quite like it may be the location for it, so let's create sidings off here, because we have to make sure that whatever we create here is going to work bidirectionally, so trains can service them from both directions. We can create this here maybe and have 3 sidings, although is that too big? I'm not a fan of how much space that's taking up, to be honest. Let's have a look. I think for now what we'll do is create just a single depot here, which can just service this line. So let's do that. Let's pick a reasonable train to use. So the Bush Type 4. I can't remember which train that's supposed to reference in real life, but that will do. And I'm sure that these can carry coal. Am I right? No, I am not right. So, let's go back and buy that train again. Here we go. And which one is it that carries coal? Of course, it says there. That's quite an oversight. Ah, here we are. The monster box. And let's make sure that here we don't overstep the 5 length, because obviously that means that we're not going to be able to fit into the stations. So stop here, and then we'll have our power station stop, to which it will be non-stop. Oops, back to the depot please, refit it for coal. And there we go, there is our coal train, which hopefully should generate us quite a bit of money. We're on 75,000 at the moment. Obviously we spent quite a lot last year in the game, but overall our road vehicle income is going up quite a bit, although our train income, well, obviously last year wasn't the best because we sent everything back to the depot, but hopefully that's going to improve too. We've got a local service here, so let's timetable these. We'll have them all wait in Reddingstone for quite a bit as their timetable resets, though in fact what I'm going to do here is, because these stations are going to be used by the express trains too, I'm going to make sure that all their stops are for 1 day only. Now I know that by doing that, oh dear, have I forgot to include this station, didn't I? Whoops. Let me just put Parnford in the station list. Will it autofill? No, we'll autofill it again. That was an oversight by myself. So, what I'm going to do is have the trains wait for quite a substantial amount of time here, but also at only at the stations off the route. So at Labrador and Nunnington, we'll have the trains wait for quite some time. This means that we can just basically get the local trains off this section of track as quickly as possible, and we're not going to be holding up the express trains, because that was quite a concern from when we last saw the trains, as they kind of bunched all together really and didn't have an opportunity to reset their own timetables. So while that's auto-filling, we will come on to the express train. So Reddingstone, Flonhill for 3 days, Bhutan for 3 days, let's say 7-8 days in Meeborn 3, and there we go. So we'll name this Bhutan Express 1. Put that back in there, and we'll have this as the Bhutan stopping service. So Bhutan stopping 1. We'll also make a coal train, so let's call it Flonhill Coal, and we will name this Flonhill Coal 2, and just put that so it's nice and organised. This looks like it's probably going to be making its first trip very soon. And I'll just ensure that, yes, it can access the main line. That's just our cat meowing, trying to get into our wardrobe. All she ever does is just wander around looking for new things to play with. You'll probably hear her quite a lot. Here we go. So I'm interested to see how much money this is going to make us, because that's really going to be the thing that dictates how quickly we can expand the network and how much we can do per project. Bhutan Express is about to approach its starting station, so let's create a second train. And what we'll do is I'll start this train and stop it just before it reaches the end of the platform. So when this service reaches right at the other end of the route, I will set this service off so they are pretty much at opposite ends of their route as they go through. It can be quite a good way to space the trains if you only have 2 trains running the same route. Obviously, if you have more than that, then it's best just to release them at certain intervals when they reach a certain section of the line. How much profit has that made so far? 6,000 to 8,000. That's not too bad. It is going to help us, and it's about the same for the stopping service. Once we have quite a few of these out making us some money, we will probably see that we'll generate quite a lot of revenue quite quickly. Coal train's about to arrive. Have I put a signal there? No, I haven't. Let's see how much this gets us. 26,000. So one run is going to be 26,000. The next run is going to be a lot quicker, obviously, because while the train is being travelling up to the power station, as you can even see with the freight stations, there's a lot of coal waiting. 218 tons to be exact, which means about half the train is going to be filled by the time it returns. That is good news for us. Our express train's next station is Meeborn, so we'll just keep an eye on this so we can space the trains out accordingly. It's about to cross over. So once this reaches here, how busy is this station? Answer, quite busy. There we are. Those are moderately spaced. Most passengers wanting to go to Reddingstone, which is fine because that's where the express trains terminate. Yep, that's going to work quite well for us. Let's make sure that these are filling. No, they're not. What I'll do is then, because this needs to fill its timetable, which means it needs to start its timetable, which it's only going to do once it reaches Reddingstone, we'll leave that for now, and we'll look at what else we're going to be doing. So pretty much everything around here has a bus route serviced. Everything's kind of tiding over well, to be honest. There's not really any stations which have a massive amount of people waiting outside of the city. Stations, inner cities, are always going to have a lot of passengers in the way that we play in the settings that we have set up. So I'm not too bothered about that. But it's just a case of we know we can feed as many trains into the city as possible and there will be demand. I think that's the most important thing. Out of all these passengers, most want to go to Bootown, which is nearly half of them, about 900. Is there anything else we can do to facilitate this? We did build a bus route last episode, didn't we? Yeah, we did. So this is going to go quite well too. Right. What else have we got? We could probably do with extending our bus route north from here, because there are quite a few little villages dotted around. Let's create a new bus route in Bootown. So what we'll do is we'll connect up the town to Parnford. Now we have this village up here, look, which we could do with servicing in some way. So the best thing to do would be just to create a bus station here. Let's think what to do here. I'm trying to think where to put the bus station. Is it worth trying to put the bus station somewhere like here? So we can basically have a bus route which goes from Bootown round to Parnford and up to Wrenham and back. Or is it worth putting it in the actual centre of the town? I think the best thing to do would be this. How much money do we have? 115,000, just about enough. Let's do this. Let's create a bit of land here, just so we can connect those roads together. That's cost us a lot of money, but I'd rather do things right. I think that's the thing here. So Wrenham. Right. And then what we'll do here is we'll have the bus station there. Because this is where the town's going to expand eventually. It's going to be best to have it where you can see that the town's going to build in future. And also having it a little bit away from the station means the catchment area of this station is now a lot bigger. So all these buildings over here are now technically attached to the train station. Because if you see here, so that's the catchment area limits of the train station, but now it extends over here. So that's going to be quite a good shout. And we'll have it go through to Labrador as well. Is it worth just having it go to Nunnington? Yes, it is. So let's create... oh dear. Create a station in Nunnington. and one here. I swear if I click that again by accident. Man, right, so we have this bus route set up. This is what we should do. Create a quick bus, which should be, let's have a look. So that's only going to have 40 passengers. How big is the demand from these towns? 64 passengers, not much. 42, not much. 92, not a great deal. And yeah, so there's not a huge demand, to be honest. We don't want to take profit away from the train, so let's just use a smaller bus for this route. Sorry, our cat again is just kind of staring at the wall and meowing. I cannot understand what she's actually wanting from that. Usually it's quite easy to tell if she wants to play with something, but yeah, not quite sure. So here's going to be our bus route. So back to Renham, and that's fine because it'll go back to Bootown, put a service on the end, and let's autofill that route. So, how far gone is our train? It's nearly back at its original station. So let's just adjust the timetable now. So 5 days, and then we're going to have 1 day all the way up the line. Stopping at, is Bootown the last station? No, it's Parnford. And then we'll have reasonable waiting times in Laborough. Nunnington can have 8 days, Laborough 4, and then 1 day all the way back down. Again, it's just a case that we have to balance out the fact that we don't want the train to stop for long enough, as little as possible in these stations, but again it is going to get quite congested. It's 2 days early arriving at its original station as well, which will work to our advantage. It does mean it has even more time to recuperate any lost days at its route. So let's clone the train, create a few copies, by which I mean 3, because that's all we can afford. And when it reaches Condingville, when it departs Condingville, we will set the train behind it off from the depot. There we go. That's number 1. Hopefully we actually gain enough money for a 4th train. Yes, there we go. The train's already full by the time it arrives in Flonhill. Guess most of the passengers are wanting to come up to Condingville. Although at least we do have the express train, which will service Flonhill anyway, so it's not a big deal. So our train, if you look up here, has just reached its last station. Gonna need another train actually. Hopefully we have the money. Yes, we do. Go away, finances page. One more train should do it. So let's depart that train. And yes, it's back at Condingville, so that works out quite well. Quite a lot of trains running now, so we have 5 trains on our stopping service, 2 on the express and a coal train. So this section of line actually has 7 trains servicing through it. Hopefully that it does mean that we actually generate quite a bit of money a lot quicker than before. Everything's profitable, be it that one not by much, although we have just changed years, that could be why. Ooh, thinking of years as well, there is one thing I'm going to turn off, which is inflation. Unfortunately, I've played quite, because of the amount of time I play the maps, further down, let's say in years 2050, you find that your game basically becomes unplayable because of the amount of inflation that happens. So you actually find that every single train journey, no matter where it goes to or what happens, will have it will just not be profitable. It'll just lose money, and I've played for maps for about nearly 2 years, and sometimes, and I've just had to stop playing because it was physically impossible to make money because of the amount of inflation. Hopefully that's not real life foreshadowing, but definitely does make it quite difficult when you can't actually create any source of money. Because obviously, like, aircraft aren't really too profitable. I think bus routes were the only thing you could really use. And even then, you only got like a few £100 a year from a ridiculously popular bus route. So, very strange. So I'd rather keep that off. So, our railway network now is it's in a good place. We have a solid route down. What we need to look at is, well, we had the bus route as well, didn't we? Is how we're going to expand out of here. So what our next bigger project would be, what we can work towards. So originally we had the idea of we were going to obviously get up to this station up here and cover the peninsula. To be honest, I don't really think there's much room for another railway in this peninsula because it's relatively small, to be honest. Ultimately, we need to try and be working out along here and coming into the mainland. So we'll look at that in a second. What I'm going to do is complete this bus route because it's nearly, well, I'm going to pause it because it's just left its second station. We'll pause it and quickly fill its bus route. I'll make it wait for 7 days in Renham just so it can recuperate any lost days. So let's create everything else as 3 days. 7 days in Renham again, because if the bus comes back from there, in fact, what we should probably do is, no, Renham is not a good place to have the 7-day wait, because if there's an early bus and a late bus, they're only going to use that side of the bus station, so that's quite impractical. Let's create the bus route in here. What can we call this one? Let's call it the Panford Flyer. Do we have a flyer? No, we don't. Yeah, the Panford Flyer. And let's create a name for the bus itself. Let's pop that into here. Now we will create very quickly a clone of the vehicle and set that off. So we know as soon as the bus hits Renham, we will depart the previous service. So fast forward time a bit. Also, while we're doing that, I'll observe how well this junction's performing on our railway. I'm very cautious of the fact that I don't want there to be too much congestion. It seems like at the moment would be okay. It's just if we ever were to build an additional line on top, we'd have to be very careful as to where it will be servicing and how we would fit it into our schedules. How much has our coal train made? 72,000 last year. Okay, that was a very good move. We'll have to look at other freight routes we could possibly incorporate as well. The thing with freight, obviously, you only get a decent amount of money if you're going to be taking the freight across long distances, because obviously you are rewarded with higher profits for longer distances of travel. I'm also just going to create a bit of an extension to this village because it does seem like it was building quite a bit with all the passengers we were sending in and out of the town. And there we are. So that's our new bus route completed as well. For the last, say, 5 minutes or so of this video, I'm going to quickly survey the area and we'll plan out what our next steps are going to be really with the map. Now, let's have a look what we have around here. So I always do like to do this at certain points just to kind of plan out what our next steps are. Because it gives you some sort of direction, so you're not building in the wrong way, you're not missing anything important. So down here looks to be straight away one of the biggest towns in the area, so that's 2,500 near enough. 1,000 in terms of population. 1,700, that's quite big. Yes, I believe aiming for what is Prunningpool Falls would be a good shout. Now, if we did this, having a service from Reddingstone wouldn't be too appealing because a train service would be going right around this peninsula, meaning it would take a long time to do quite a short distance, and we wouldn't really get much profit from that. So that's not going to be a case of, so this town, we're not going to benefit from our existing connections. We'd only benefit in the long run by creating new connections to that town. So short term, in terms of short-term profit, would be better expanding up this way because we'd be getting more money for the fact that we'd be going a longer distance. So Wanpool here would be a better shout initially. What we could do from there is build a service from Wanpool down, which goes along this coast instead, and that would be more beneficial because obviously taking passengers from this town to this town is, you know, we're taking them quite a fair distance. We're not going around anything substantial. We'd have to go around this small mountain range, but apart from that, that would work out quite well. So I believe that would be our plan. How would we get the railway out of this peninsula is the next question. Do we expand from here, as we had initially planned? So do we come right around here and go up here? I mean, that could be a good idea, actually, because, again, these towns are quite far away from Warmpool, so we'll be getting quite a lot of profit from that. We don't really stand to benefit from cutting off this section. And let's have a look. I mean, what we could do is we could start just outlining where the railway will go. So you'd have basically it would come this kind of direction across here in some regard. So through here, maybe a station in Eddingford. We'll have like maybe a small stopping route. Though if we were to have a stopping route, these towns are very, very small. They're all under 500 really, so it will be a very sparse service that we would operate. Could have through here. Yes, up this coast would be best, wouldn't it? A station here. This kind of direction. These are just rough guidelines. I just like to put these down so I can kind of see what I'm working towards, to be honest. It does make things a lot easier because the maps can be quite overbearing, especially on bigger maps than this. Yeah, that should be our general route. So we'll build a railway up to Warmpool. That's what we want to aim for. We have 116,000 at the moment. We probably have to do this in sections, but I believe it would be the best thing to do. And then after that, we'll build a line down this coast to Proddingpool Falls. We could then maybe connect up Reddingstone via ferry, so we have like a small ferry across the channel. Or is the, well, quite a bit down, we could look into creating a bridge across this section, but that will cost a lot of money, probably quite a few million. So it's a case of when the network's a lot bigger, that could be something that's worth bearing in mind. Because another thing to bear in mind is the fact that because this is our first city, that one's going to expand a lot quicker than everything else. So before long, that will be the biggest town on the map, if it isn't already. If we look here, yes, the Reddingstone is there. This is our biggest city at the moment. God, that's not far actually. Oh, okay. I expected it to be like the other corner of the map. Okay, so that's definitely what we need to be aiming for. So this section down here, Proddingpool Falls to Slinding Hall, and then up to our new Warmpool station. That's going to be very, very lucrative, isn't it? Right, definitely. Where are the next ones? We have Drinley, which is again isn't too far. That's another thing to aim for. If we can connect the top two highest populated cities, then that's not something that's too far away, to be honest. Warmpool will pretty much be the centre of those. So it's quite important we check that. So we know that this station needs to be, I can just flatten these areas. It needs to be this direction, and it needs to be a wider station so we can incorporate the future route. But that's going to be very important for us. We'll connect those two, Drinley to Slinding Hall, these two biggest cities on the map. And passenger wise, that's going to be great for us because that will give us a lot of income, and it should kind of snowball us into the fact that we'd just be able to build what we want then. Okay, that's the future plan then. So I'll end this part here. In the next video, we will start planning our railway from this peninsula up to Warmpool. Don't know if we'll finish it next part, but that'll be what we'll start on. And then after that, in the series in general, we will start what is going to be our first big project, which will be creating a railway from this city here up the coast, intersecting quite a few stops to Warmpool and then on to Drinley. That's going to be our plan. Thanks for watching, and hopefully the next part will be uploaded after not very long.